Oh, act as if God is within you is to first recognize the space you inhabit. Not the space around you, but the space within you, your body, your mind, your breath. This is the temple. Not a temple built with stones or adorned with gold, but a living, breathing sanctuary that moves with you wherever you go. It is easy to forget. In the rush of daily life, in the noise and distraction, we begin to treat ourselves casually as if we are nothing more than machines responding to external demands. But when we remember that the divine lives within, something begins to shift. The temple must be cared for, not out of vanity or obsession, but out of reverence. What you consume becomes the offering. What you allow into your mind becomes the incense, the tone of your voice, the weight of your words, the posture of your body. These are the rituals. To act as if God is within you is not about pretending to be perfect. It is about moving with awareness, eating with gratitude, walking with presence. It is about understanding that how you treat your body is how you treat the divine. Look at how a temple is treated. Shoes are removed before entering. Voices are lowered. Every corner is cleaned. Every object placed with intention. If we had even a fraction of that respect for our own inner space, our lives would look very different. We would speak to ourselves with more kindness. We would take rest without guilt. Vacuum. We would nourish instead of punish, but most importantly, we would learn to listen, not just to the outside world, but to the quiet voice within that guides with subtlety and silence. This temple is not static. It is shaped by your actions, your choices, your habits. Every day you either build or break it. Discipline becomes devotion when it is aligned with something sacred. Waking early to care for your body is no longer just fitness. It becomes prayer. Choosing your words carefully is no longer about diplomacy, it becomes truthfulness. Walking slowly and mindfully is no longer a lifestyle trend. It becomes alignment with the pace of the divine. And just like in any sacred space, clutter must be cleared. Emotional clutter, mental noise, toxic thoughts and unresolved anger, they accumulate like dust on sacred statues. Left unattended, they begin to block the light that shines from within. And so cleansing is necessary. Not just with water or food, but with solitude, with reflection. You must give yourself space to breathe, to return, to remember. You must remind yourself that this temple is alive, and its sanctity depends on your attention. There is no outside force required to sanctify you, no ceremony, no approval, only the realization that what you seek you already carry. The sacredness you assign to temples, scriptures, and rituals is already pulsing inside your chest. Once you realize this, you no longer wait for peace. You become the space where peace is possible. And from that space, every action becomes sacred. When you hear the phrase, act as if God is within you, it may stir an immediate sense of strength, of power. But the deeper truth is that this awareness does not bring power in the way most people imagine it. It brings responsibility. And that is a far heavier weight to carry. Power without responsibility leads to pride, control, and destruction. Responsibility without the ego of power leads to humility, awareness, and growth. So when one walks with the awareness that the divine is present within, they must choose carefully, not from fear of punishment, but from respect for what lives inside. If there is divinity within you, then every action becomes a reflection of it. Your hands no longer belong only to you. Your words do not carry just your voice. They carry something higher. That is where the weight lies. Because in this awareness, excuses begin to disappear. There is no longer room to say, I was just angry or I didn't mean it. Every movement, every reaction begins to matter. You do not act well because others are watching. You act well because you are watching. And more than that, something deeper within is watching, something silent, timeless, and truthful. That presence does not force you, but it reminds you. It reminds you of the person you are meant to be. Not the one shaped by external conditions, but the one that emerges when all masks fall away. Responsibility means you can no longer hide behind your circumstances. It means your past does not excuse your present. It means you are no longer satisfied with being ruled by impulses or habits. You start holding yourself to a higher standard, not out of pressure, but out of reverence for the sacred potential you carry. And still, this responsibility is not heavy like a burden. It is steady like a compass. It brings structure. It teaches discipline. It holds you upright when the world tries to bend you. When people speak carelessly, you speak deliberately. When others seek to win, you seek to stay true. This is not weakness. It is strength under control. It is knowing that just because you can does not mean you should. Just because you feel something does not mean you act on it. Power is loud, visible, often temporary. Responsibility is quiet, subtle, and lasting. One seeks control over others. The other seeks mastery over self. When you act from responsibility, you no longer react from ego. You respond from essence. Stillness is not the absence of movement. It is the presence of awareness. Before action, there must be stillness. Not necessarily on the outside, but within. A pause, a breath, a return to center. In that brief space between impulse and movement, something essential happens. Clarity begins to rise. Most people move through life reacting to words, reacting to emotions, reacting to circumstances, but to act as if God is within you means something different. It means you do not allow the noise outside to dictate the voice inside. It means you cultivate space between stimulus and response, where intention can be born. Stillness is not laziness, it is not hesitation, it is the discipline of self-restraint. It is the decision to move from wisdom, not from restlessness. You begin to recognize that action born from agitation only creates more disturbance, but action born from stillness carries depth, it carries truth, it carries alignment. In a world addicted to speed, stillness feels unnatural at first. But what is fast is not always effective. What is loud is not always true. To live with the awareness of the divine within you means you trust the quiet more than the chaos. You don't rush into decisions to feel in control. You wait until the right action becomes obvious, not forced. There is a moment just before speech when you can choose your words with care. There is a moment just before reaction when you can choose to let go instead of escalate. These small pauses, if cultivated, begin to change your life. They don't delay your action, they refine it. And when your actions are refined, they become more impactful, more meaningful, more aligned with the energy you want to carry forward. Stillness trains you to observe before participating. It teaches you to see your own emotions rise like waves, and instead of drowning in them, you watch them pass. In that watching, understanding grows, and with understanding, compassion becomes possible. Patience becomes natural, wisdom becomes accessible, not from books but from direct experience. A person who practices stillness before action does not need to prove anything. Their strength is not in how fast they move, but in how rooted they remain while everything around them shifts. When others are shaken, they are steady. When others are impulsive, they are deliberate. When others are noisy, they are calm. This calm is not personality, it is practice. It is cultivated through silence, reflection, breath, and discipline. When you carry the awareness that God is within, stillness is not something you seek. It becomes your starting point. To act as if God is within you is to hold yourself to a different standard, not one imposed by external rules, but one that rises from deep inner knowing. This standard is not about perfection. It is about alignment. It is about living in harmony with what is highest in you, not just when it is convenient, but especially when it is difficult. Excuses are a way of stepping away from that alignment. They are mental justifications we give ourselves when we know we've moved out of integrity. I was tired, I deserved it. No one noticed. These are all ways of softening the discomfort of not living up to our own values. But when you truly accept the presence of the divine within you, the space for excuses disappears, because in that awareness, every action becomes sacred. Every choice becomes a statement. Either it is aligned with the truth within you or it is not. There is no middle path. There is no gray area where excuses can comfortably live. You begin to see that every time you act against your own inner guidance, it costs something, not just in results, but in integrity, in energy, in peace. Alignment is not about being rigid, it is about being honest. You ask yourself, does this choice match what I claim to believe? If not, you adjust. Not because someone is watching, not because there is a punishment waiting, but because misalignment creates inner conflict. And the deeper your awareness becomes, the more sensitive you are to that conflict. When you are in alignment, there is nothing to hide. You don't need to remember what you said or who you pretended to be. You move with clarity, you speak with consistency. Your presence becomes stable, and people feel that stability even if they don't understand it. Excuses come from fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of discomfort. But alignment requires courage. The courage to say no when it's easier to say yes. The courage to stand still when everyone else moves. The courage to hold your ground not in arrogance, but in quiet confidence that you are acting from a deeper place. You stop asking, what can I get away with? And start asking, what reflects who I truly am? That question reshapes your habits, your words, your decisions. Discipline is no longer punishment, it becomes devotion. Structure is no longer restriction, it becomes protection. And your life over time becomes less about reacting to the world and more about expressing what is already aligned with it. There is no room left to blame the day, the weather, the people, or the pressure. The only question that remains is whether your action reflects your center or takes you away from it. When you begin to live with the awareness that the divine is within you, something profound starts to happen. You begin to see that same divine potential in others. This is not a belief. It is a perception shift. You no longer see people as random characters moving through your life, but as mirrors, each one reflecting something back to you. Some mirrors show you light. They reflect your kindness, your strength, your capacity for love and patience. You meet someone who inspires you, and in that moment, you're not just seeing them, you're seeing a part of yourself that is ready to grow. Admiration is not just about them. It is also a reminder of what lives within you, waiting to be awakened. Other mirrors are harder to look at. They bring discomfort. They trigger frustration, anger, or judgment. But these too are mirrors. They reveal your wounds, your blind spots, your resistance. If someone's behavior unsettles you, the question is not always what's wrong with them, but also what is this stirring in me? The way you respond to others is often a direct reflection of your inner condition. This doesn't mean everyone else is right. It doesn't mean you have to tolerate harm or agree with what others do. But it does mean that every interaction is an opportunity to learn, not about them, but about yourself. Are you reacting or responding? Are you projecting or perceiving clearly? Are you defending your ego or expressing your essence? When you act as if God is within you, your relationships take on a new dimension. You begin to listen more deeply, not to agree, but to understand. You stop trying to control or fix people and instead ask, what is this moment showing me about myself? Even in conflict, you look for clarity, not victory. This awareness softens your judgments. You realize that just as you are carrying your unseen struggles, so is everyone else. Compassion becomes possible, not as a concept, but as a lived experience. Forgiveness becomes easier, not because others always deserve it, but because holding on to resentment distorts your own reflection. Others don't just reflect who you are now, they also reflect who you have been and who you are becoming. That difficult person you once judged might reveal a version of yourself from the past. That wise teacher might reflect where you are headed. Every person is a fragment of a larger mirror, showing you what you might not yet see in yourself. To recognize others as mirrors is to take back your power. You stop waiting for them to change and start refining the image within. The world no longer becomes something you have to manage. It becomes something you can understand when you live with the awareness that God is within you. Life no longer needs to be grand to be meaningful. You stop chasing moments of intensity and start noticing the quiet beauty in what's already present. The sacred does not only live in temples, mountains, or ancient texts. It lives in the ordinary. The sacred is hidden in the simple, waiting to be seen, felt, and honored. We are taught to look for meaning in extraordinary experiences. We wait for perfect moments, special occasions, powerful breakthroughs. But the one who walks with presence knows that meaning is not something you wait for, it is something you bring. A breath taken with awareness is more sacred than 1,000 spoken prayers offered in distraction. A small act done with sincerity carries more spiritual weight than a large gesture done with ego. The simple becomes sacred when you approach it with presence. Washing a dish, folding a blanket, making tea, these actions, when done with full attention, are no longer chores. They become rituals. Not because of the act itself, but because of the quality of awareness you bring to them. What you do is not as important as how you do it. When the divine lives within you, every moment becomes an altar. You don't need candles or mantras to connect. You only need to be here, truly here, with your senses open and your mind quiet. That level of attention turns even the smallest tasks into offerings. The way you greet someone, the way you listen without interrupting, the way you sit in silence and allow yourself to just breathe. All of it becomes sacred when it is done with intention. People often think of spiritual living as something far away, something abstract or complex. But the deeper the understanding becomes, the simpler the expression of it. Truth does not need to be loud. Beauty does not need to be explained. Peace does not need to be proven. These qualities are already present in life, just hidden under layers of distraction and expectation. A single flower, a quiet sunrise, a shared glance. These are not just small moments. They are reminders. Reminders that what is holy is not always extraordinary. It is often missed simply because we are looking too far ahead, too high up, or too far outside ourselves. But the one who sees the sacred in the simple begins to live differently. There is less rush, less noise, more space, more care. Slowing down becomes a spiritual act. Listening becomes an offering. Preparing food, sweeping the floor, or sitting with a loved one becomes a way to honor the moment. When you carry the divine within, you don't need to prove it through dramatic expression. You live it quietly in the small things. You don't need to be seen by others to feel close to something greater. You only need to be fully present in what is already here.